Japan worked day and night, building its future. Through tireless effort, the nation achieved remarkable success.
Far out in the Pacific Ocean, off the eastern coast of Asia, lies a chain of islands shaped like a curved bow. This is Japan. It is a land where mountains rise sharply from the sea, where the soil shakes with earthquakes, and where the seasons bring both gentle cherry blossoms and fierce typhoons. It is not an easy place to live. The land that can be farmed is small. The natural resources are few. And yet, against all these odds, the people of Japan built one of the most remarkable civilizations the world has ever seen. This is the story of how they did it. For hundreds of years, Japan was a feudal society. The country was divided into regions, each controlled by a powerful lord. These lords kept private armies of warriors known as the samurai. The samurai were more than just soldiers. They lived by a strict code of honor. They valued loyalty to their lord above their own lives. They valued self-discipline and a calm acceptance of hardship. These values did not belong only to the warrior class. Over time, they spread through the whole society. The farmer in his field, the craftsman at his bench, the merchant in his shop, all believed in doing their duty and striving for excellence. From the early 1600s until the middle of the 1800s, Japan was almost completely closed to the outside world. The ruling Tokugawa family had seen what foreign influence could do. They feared that traders and missionaries would bring conflict, so they shut the doors. No Japanese person could leave the country. Only a few Dutch and Chinese traders were allowed to enter, and only at one tiny port. For more than 200 years, Japan developed in isolation, like a garden growing behind a high wall. During this long period of peace, Japanese culture bloomed. The city of Edo, which we now call Tokyo, became one of the largest cities in the world. The arts flourished. Poets wrote delicate verses about the beauty of nature. Painters created stunning woodblock prints of landscapes and city life. Craftsmen perfected the making of swords, pottery, and silk. Kabuki theater entertained the common people with its colorful dramas. The tea ceremony became a meditative art form, a way of finding deep meaning in simple actions. All this creativity happened while the rest of the world barely knew Japan existed. But isolation could not last forever. In the summer of 1853, a strange sight appeared in the harbor near Edo. 4 American warships, black and smoking, steamed into the bay. They were led by Commodore Matthew Perry, who carried a letter from the President of the United States. The Americans wanted Japan to open its ports to trade. The Japanese saw the powerful cannons on those ships, and they understood that they had a difficult choice to make. They could resist, like China had tried to do, and risk being crushed, or they could open the door and learn from the foreigners. Japan chose to learn. In 1868, a group of young reformers overthrew the old feudal system and restored the emperor to power. This event is known as the Meiji Restoration, named after the young emperor Meiji. But the real power lay not just with the emperor, but with a determined group of leaders who had a bold vision. They believed that Japan could only remain independent if it became strong, and to become strong, it had to study the ways of the Western powers that had arrived at its shores. What followed was one of the most rapid and thorough transformations in all of history. The government sent teams of scholars and officials all over the world. They went to Britain to study its navy. They went to Germany to study its army. They went to France to study its legal system. They went to America to study its industry and education. Everywhere they went, they took careful notes. Then they came home and adapted what they had learned to fit Japanese culture and values. The feudal system was swept away. The old samurai class lost its special privileges. In just a few decades, Japan built a modern army and navy. It constructed railways and telegraph lines. It opened schools that taught science, math, and technology to all children, not just the wealthy. The government itself funded factories and then sold them to private entrepreneurs. Silk and cotton mills hummed. Shipyards launched modern vessels. The Japanese took the best ideas from the West, but they did not abandon their own identity. They blended new knowledge with old values of hard work, cooperation, and loyalty. The results were astonishing. In 1895, just a generation after the old feudal system had ended, Japan went to war with China, the ancient giant of East Asia, and won. In 1904, Japan went to war with Russia, a major European power, and shocked the world by winning again. The victory over Russia was the first time in modern history that an Asian nation had defeated a European power. Japan had arrived on the world stage. The boy who had been locked out of the classroom had come back and taken a seat at the front. But Japan's early success also carried the seeds of danger. The same pride and military strength that had protected the nation began to push it toward aggression. By the 1930s, military leaders had gained more and more control over the government. They believed that Japan deserved an empire of its own, just like the European powers had. They invaded Manchuria in 1931. They launched a full-scale war against China in 1937. The conflict was brutal. Japanese soldiers committed terrible atrocities, including the massacre at Nanking. The dark side of militarism was consuming the country. Then, in December 1941, Japan attacked the American naval base at Pearl Harbor. The goal was to cripple the American fleet so that Japan could seize the rich oil fields and colonies of Southeast Asia. At first, the plan succeeded. Japanese forces swept across the Pacific and took vast territories. But the attack awoke a sleeping giant. The United States, with its enormous industrial power, poured its resources into the war. Slowly, painfully, the tide turned. Island by island, the American forces pushed Japan back. By 1945, Japan's cities were being bombed, its navy was destroyed, and its people were starving. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The destruction was beyond description. A single bomb in each city killed tens of thousands of people in a flash and left the land scarred by radiation. At the same time, the Soviet Union entered the war against Japan. The government in Tokyo faced total annihilation. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito spoke on the radio for the first time. His voice, thin and distant, told the people that the war was lost. Japan surrendered. The country lay in ruins. When the American occupation forces arrived, they found a nation shattered. Tokyo and other major cities were flattened wastelands of rubble and ash. Millions of people were homeless. Factories were destroyed. The economy had collapsed. Many Japanese feared that their country would never rise again. But the occupation, led by General Douglas MacArthur, did something remarkable. Instead of simply punishing Japan, it set out to rebuild it as a peaceful, democratic nation. A new constitution was written, and it went into effect in 1947. It was one of the most progressive documents in the world. The emperor was no longer considered a god, but a symbol of the nation. War was renounced forever. The new constitution said Japan would never maintain an army, a navy, or an air force. It gave women the right to vote and guaranteed basic human rights. The old system of nobility was abolished. The economy was reorganized to break up the huge monopolies that had supported the war. The Japanese people, with their deep traditions of discipline and education, took the tools of democracy and ran with them. They worked hard, they saved their money, they sent their children to school. American aid in the early years, especially food and raw materials, helped to stop the hunger and start the recovery. But the real engine of the recovery was the Japanese themselves. By the 1950s, the economy was growing rapidly. This was the beginning of what many would call the Japanese economic miracle. Japanese companies focused on making high-quality products for export. At first, the label "Made in Japan" had a reputation for being cheap and poorly made. The Japanese set out to change that. They studied production methods from around the world, especially from an American expert named W. Edwards Deming, who taught them the importance of quality control and continuous improvement. The results were stunning. By the 1960s, Japan was producing steel, ships, and electronics that were among the best in the world. By the 1970s, Japanese cars and motorcycles were competing fiercely with American and European brands. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan became household names around the globe. By the 1980s, Japanese companies like Sony and Panasonic dominated the electronics market with televisions, radios, and the revolutionary Walkman. Japan had transformed itself from a defeated, burned-out nation into the second largest economy on Earth. The secret of this success was not magic. It was a combination of factors. The Japanese workforce was highly educated and deeply committed. Companies treated their workers as long-term family members, often guaranteeing lifetime employment. Workers and managers cooperated closely to improve products and solve problems. The government worked with industry to plan for the future, and the nation saved a large portion of its income, which provided capital for investment. By the end of the 1980s, Japan seemed unstoppable. Its companies were buying up landmarks in America. Its banks were the largest in the world. People talked about the 21st century being the Japanese century. But then, in the early 1990s, the bubble burst. Stock prices and real estate values crashed. The economy went into a long period of stagnation. Growth slowed. Banks struggled with bad loans. Some called it the lost decade, and then the lost 2 decades. Yet even in the face of this long economic slowdown, Japan did not collapse. The society remained stable. There was no massive unrest. The streets remained safe. The trains ran on time. Japan continued to be a world leader in technology and innovation. Its culture, from anime to video games to fashion, became globally influential. Millions of people around the world fell in love with Japanese food, from sushi to ramen. In 2011, another terrible test came. A massive earthquake struck off the coast, sending a giant tsunami crashing into the northern region of Tohoku. Nearly 20,000 people were killed. The waves also damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, causing a meltdown and spreading radiation. It was the worst disaster Japan had faced since the war. The world watched as the Japanese people responded with remarkable calm and resilience. Neighbors helped neighbors. Rescue workers searched tirelessly. The country, once again, began to rebuild. Today, Japan faces new challenges. Its population is aging and shrinking. The economy must adapt to global changes. But Japan has faced great challenges before. Its history is a long story of rising to meet the difficult moment. From isolation to opening, from feudalism to modernity, from the ashes of war to an economic miracle, the Japanese people have shown again and again that they can adapt and endure. The success story of Japan is not just about becoming rich or powerful. It is about a nation that managed to preserve its cultural soul while embracing change. The tea ceremony is still practiced. Cherry blossoms are still celebrated. Temples and shrines are still tended with care. The values of respect, hard work, and attention to detail still run deep. But Japan is also a land of bullet trains and robots, of cutting-edge technology and global brands. Perhaps the deepest lesson of Japan's story is that success does not come from natural resources or easy circumstances. Japan has few resources and a harsh geography. Success comes from people, from their education, their values, their willingness to work together, and their determination to learn. The story of Japan is a story of a people who looked at the best the world had to offer, took what worked, and made it their own. And in doing so, they built something that the rest of the world could not ignore. So when you see a Japanese car on the road, or a Japanese animated film, or a bowl of ramen in a restaurant far from Tokyo, remember the long road that led there. It is a road that runs through centuries of isolation, through the shock of the black ships, through the fires of war, and through the patient, brilliant work of rebuilding. It is the road of a nation that refused to give up, and that road is still unfolding.